There are love stories that do not end with a breakup, but with a moment when one person suddenly wakes up and realizes they have destroyed the purest thing that ever touched their life. No daggers, no cruel words, only the coldness they proudly rename as strength. But in truth, it is nothing more than a thin layer of ice covering their deepest fear, the fear of being seen, of being loved, of losing control. A narcissist doesn't know that love cannot survive in the atmosphere of power, in a place where every emotion must obey, where kindness is mocked as naivete and honesty is punished. Love suffocates in silence. They think that by making you doubt yourself, by forcing you into silence, by leaving without a word, they have won. Yet within that silence, they fail to notice a quiet earthquake forming beneath their own feet, not in you, but in them. Every narcissist has a breaking point. It doesn't arrive when you leave. It arrives when the mask they've worn their entire life begins to slip. When there's no one left to blame, no one left to mirror, no one left to believe in the role they've crafted. When the admiration fades and they realize that every relationship they ever had was a one-person performance, and the only audience who ever truly saw them is gone forever. They will try to act composed. They will laugh louder, post more, love faster, and speak of peace as if they've found enlightenment. But in the long nights without light, when everyone else sleeps, they begin to hear the one sound they fear the most, the echo of their own emptiness. The echo that repeats endlessly, "If I have no one left to control, who am I?" That panic no one sees. On the outside, they still appear dazzling, untouched, but inside, their soul fractures piece by piece. They start to miss you, not because of love, but because with you, they once felt illuminated. You were the mirror that reflected the only traces of their buried humanity. Now that light is gone, the darkness begins to devour them from within. And that is the true breaking point of a narcissist. Not when they lose you, but when they realize they never truly had you. Because to truly have someone, one must know how to be present. But they were never present. They were always performing, always on their own stage, acting for a world they no longer belonged to. When they killed real love, they didn't just lose you. They lost their last chance at redemption, because nothing else in their life was ever that real. The love you offered wasn't admiration, it was a touch of the soul, something they never believed could exist. And now, no matter how many people they meet, how many beds they share, how many lives they wander through, they are only searching for what they themselves destroyed. That is the paradox of the narcissist. They spend their whole life running from the truth, only to be consumed by it in the end. They once thought they were strong because they needed no one, but when night falls, they finally understand. Strength isn't in needing no one, it's in not destroying those who once loved you. Part 1. The Formula of Love's Destruction. When power matters more than connection. Every narcissist has a ritual, a formula they repeat with every person who ever loved them. At first, it looks like love, sometimes even better than love. They look at you in a way that makes you believe you've finally been seen. They listen to every word, remember every detail, as if you are the center of their universe. But in reality, you're standing in the middle of an experiment. A narcissist does not seek connection, they seek control. Every gentle gesture, every promise, every "I've never met anyone like you" is simply a tool to map your soul. Their curiosity isn't love, it's strategy. They want to find which buttons make you tremble, which wounds make you fold, which words make you melt. And once they've found them, the game begins. In their psychology, love is a stage for power. They must be the lead actor, the emotional puppeteer. When you're happy, they must be the reason. When you're in pain, they must be the cause. In that universe, you are never free. In the first phase, idealization. They worship you. They inflate you into a savior. They make you feel special, chosen, exalted. but hidden behind it is a silent contract. I will love you as long as you keep seeing me as divine. The moment you start to see their cracks, the weaknesses, contradictions, the shadows, they panic. Because in their world, love isn't a meeting between two human beings. It's a reflection between the admirer and the adored. And so they shift into phase 2, emotional manipulation. They begin to withdraw, to go silent, to change tone or create small conflicts, not because they're angry, but because they're measuring you. They want to see how far you'll bend to keep them. Will you beg? Will you apologize for things that weren't your fault? Will you try twice as hard to make them stay? Every time you do, they gather data. Every time you fear losing them, they gain power. And once they know you won't leave, the devaluation begins. The praise turns into criticism. The care turns into coldness. The "you're the only one" turns into "you've changed." Affection is replaced by controlled insecurity. You find yourself living in a strange grey zone where love and doubt blend until you can no longer tell them apart. You never know if today they'll hold you or hurt you. You start predicting their moods just to keep the peace, losing touch with your own. That's how love dies, not in betrayal but in slow erosion. When you must constantly prove your worth, it's no longer love. When you're afraid to upset the person you love, it's no longer connection. And when you start apologizing just to keep the peace, you've already stepped into the emotional prison they built for you. The bitter truth is they see nothing wrong. In their mind, this is the natural order of the world. They are the one who controls and you are the one who feels. Real love, with its equality, its tenderness, its vulnerability, terrifies them. Because real love demands the removal of masks. The narcissist cannot bear that. Beneath the mask lies an abyss, a hollow space where self-respect does not exist, where a stable sense of self was never formed, only the echoes of old voices. You're not good enough. You must be strong. You can't be weak. They learn to dominate other people's emotions to hide the truth that they never mastered their own. And so they keep performing. Every time you move closer, they step back. Every time you say, "I just need you to be real," they disappear. Because to them, being real means being seen, and being seen means losing power. They destroy love not because they want to, but because they don't know how to love without control. And they assume you'll keep chasing, just like everyone before you. They believe that when they return, you'll still be there, arms open, forgiving, ready to continue the story that was never real. But this time it's different, because true love doesn't die. It simply withdraws from where it is no longer honored. And when you fall silent, when you stop reacting, when you stop explaining, at that very moment you touch their breaking point. Part 2. When you stop reacting, their power system begins to collapse. At first, they don't notice. They think you're sulking, testing them, playing the same game they once played. They're used to the script where you can't endure silence, that you'll break it with a text, a call, or an apology that isn't yours to make. They've seen you tremble through their silence before, so they assume this time will be no different. But days pass, weeks pass, and you don't return. No message, no signal, no justification, just absolute stillness. That is the moment the first crack appears in their mind, because narcissists live on reaction. Your emotions are the fuel for their fragile ego. When you cry, they feel powerful. When you're angry, they feel significant. When you beg, they feel worshipped. But when you stop reacting, their entire internal structure begins to shake. They start to panic, not because they miss you, but because they don't know who they are without you. They've always defined themselves through the eyes of others, through being admired, hated, or envied. Now, with everything silent, they look around and see only empty walls. No more of your voice, no more of your energy, no more reflection to show them who they are. This is what the narcissist fears most, the disappearance of the mirror. Because they never truly knew who they were, only who they were in someone else's eyes. And when you withdraw, They don't just lose a relationship, they lose their own shadow. You think they're indifferent, but in reality they're unraveling. You think they've forgotten you, but in truth, they're watching your every trace. Silently, they check your social media, seeing if you're posting, where you are, who you're smiling with. They need evidence that you still care, even if that care now hides behind dignified silence. Because if you truly let go, it means their only source of power, the one thing they fed on, has evaporated. Your silence forces them to hear themselves for the first time. There are no words from you to drown out their inner noise, no emotions from you to cling to. And in that void, they begin to hear their most primal fear, the fear of being forgotten. When you stop chasing, the game ends, but they haven't realized it yet. They try to restart the chessboard. A probing message, a casual question, sometimes just a random emoji reaction to your story. It's not an apology, it's a test. If you respond, the game revives. If you stay silent, their world collapses another layer. And then, the same silence they once used as a weapon turns into a mirror that exposes the truth. It shows them that they never truly had you. They only had temporary power you once allowed. It shows them that no real love can survive where only one person is allowed to have a voice. And it shows them that what they called control was nothing but fear dressed up as pride. You once thought they were cold, but in truth they are terrified. They are scrambling to fill the void with anything. Work, alcohol, new people, self-affirming mantras like, "I'm fine," but nothing works. Because your silence isn't just physical distance, it's energetic withdrawal. For a senior level official, you were once a source of light, not because you saved them, but because you reflected the humanity they had long lost. And when that light is gone, all that remains is the darkness they can no longer escape. And so, deep within, the breaking point begins to form. A small crack at first, but with each passing day, each silent hour you hold your peace, that crack widens, not because you seek revenge, but because they no longer have the fuel to sustain their illusion. No one believes anymore, no one admires, no one is deceived. They're left alone in the room of truth, forced to face what they fear most, that they themselves destroyed the only real love that ever entered their life. And while you heal, slowly, quietly, they begin to disintegrate. No noise, no blood, just a collapse in silence, a fracture unseen yet irreversible. Part 3. The moment of realization. When they understand that true love is gone forever, when the breaking point arrives, it doesn't come with drama, tears, or begging. It comes on a quiet night, when all the noise inside their head finally stops and the truth begins to bleed through. The narcissist suddenly realizes that what they lost was not just a lover, but the only person who ever loved them genuinely, without demand, without performance, without conditions. They look around the familiar room that once served as their stage, where arguments echoed, where they rehearsed apologies, where tears once fueled their ego, and now there is only silence. A silence no longer triumphant, but heavy with decay and emptiness. In that moment, they begin to understand what they always avoided. That real love doesn't die in noise. It dies in the quiet resignation of someone too exhausted to keep believing. When you walked away, you didn't take resentment with you. You took something they could never create. Authenticity. And that is what destroys them, because they realize no one else ever truly saw them. Not the performance, not the mask, but the fragile human beneath, the part of themselves they never dared to face. They miss you, not out of love, but because you once reflected the last trace of their buried humanity. Now there is no reflection left. They look into the mirror and see only a hollow face. They try to repeat their old rituals with new people, the compliments, the tenderness, the enchanting gaze, but it all feels empty. No one makes them feel real. No one makes them tremble like you once did, because you touched them on a level they could not control. Panic begins to rise, not from losing you, but from losing the ability to believe they can ever be loved again. How could they be, when they themselves killed love with their own hands? They search for you in every face, in every dream, in every temporary replacement they cling to. But the more they search, the clearer it becomes. No one is deep enough to reflect their soul, because that soul is now just an empty shell. Their so-called regret isn't awakening. It's withdrawal from an addiction with no new fix. They don't know how to live without someone to control, someone to react, someone to make them feel significant. And in the silence they once used to punish others, they now find themselves in prison. They hear their own sigh and despise it because it is the sound of truth. They never loved anyone, and they never knew how to be loved. That is the narcissist's most terrifying moment, when they finally understand that everything they once tried to control has only led them to lose the one thing that can never be bought back: real love. A love that, even if they return, they no longer have the right to touch. Part 4. When they try to come back. The loop of illusion and unhealed pain. When the narcissist comes back, it is not because they've changed. They return because they cannot endure the silence they created. They reappear as if nothing ever happened, with the same familiar tone, the same eyes that once melted your defenses, the same carefully chosen words designed to awaken old memories. But you must understand, this is not an apology. It is a ritual of power restoration. They don't return to love you. They return to see if you still tremble when they speak your name. Because in the narcissist's mind, love has never been about connection. It has always been about confirmation of existence. They cannot stand your peace, because your peace is living proof that their game is over. And so they will try again, not with the same aggression as before, but with a counterfeit gentleness. They know you once longed for an apology, for acknowledgement, for closure, so they bring you something that looks like it. I've been thinking a lot. I can't forget you. No one understands me like you do. But within those words there is no accountability, no truth, only naked fear. The fear of losing the one person who once made them feel worthy of love. You can recognize it if you listen closely, because when you ask deeper questions, why did you do it? Do you understand how much you hurt me? They deflect, evade, or blame circumstances. To them, admitting fault equals ego death. They cannot bear the thought that they caused the collapse, so they twist the story. I only acted that way because I was afraid of losing you. You made me feel not good enough. And if you believe them, the game restarts. Only this time, your soul is a little weaker. What they call coming back is not reconciliation. It's an experiment to see if you've forgotten how to suffer. If you still react with anger, with tears, or with hope, they know they still occupy space in your mind. But if you stay silent, if you look at them with eyes that no longer tremble, they become unsettled. Because in their world, love must always be dramatic. They do not know how to love a calm person. They only know how to love someone who bleeds for them. And so they perform again. The old storm returns: affection, withdrawal, chaos, control. They try to recreate the magic that once was. But the harder they try, the more they fail. Because real love cannot be engineered. It can only live in sincerity, something they can never reach. You now see every move, every tactic, and what once made you weak now only evokes pity. Deep down, they know they're losing, but they can't stop. Because a narcissist doesn't know how to exist without someone to mirror them, they need to see themselves in your eyes, to hear their name in your voice, to feel your attention to confirm they still exist. But this time, you're no longer the mirror that flatters. You are the mirror that reveals. A mirror that doesn't beautify or distort, only reflects the truth, emptiness, exhaustion, and loneliness. The moment they realize this, the real pain begins. Because in your reflection, they no longer see the conqueror, they see the abandoned child within them. The child who was never loved properly, who was never taught that love doesn't require control. But instead of embracing that child, they run from it. They'll search for someone new, a new audience, a new source of supply, because facing themselves is the one thing they cannot do. This is the endless loop of the unhealed soul, to seek love, to destroy it, and to panic at the emptiness that follows. And with every cycle, they lose another fragment of their humanity, until one day, They feel nothing but a soulless fatigue, and you, the one who once loved them truly, become the last mirror they dare to look into. After you, no one will have the patience or courage to see them without fear. But here's what matters most. Their return is not a miracle, it is a test. It does not ask, "Do you still love me?" It asks, "Have you awakened enough not to repeat the lesson?" If you respond, you step back into the maze. If you stay silent, you step out of it. And when you no longer need their return to prove your worth, that is the moment you are truly free. They won't understand your peace. They will call you cold, arrogant, detached. But in truth, you have simply seen what they have not, that real love requires no victory, no control, no audience, only truth. And that is the narcissist's tragedy. They can make the whole world look at them, yet lose the only person who truly saw them. When they come back, they do not bring love. They bring unhealed pain, but you no longer have to heal it. All you must do is keep your peace. For that, peace itself is the answer, because in the end, their return is not a second chance. It is a reminder that you have grown too far to belong to that cycle anymore. And when you can look at them without anger or longing, only gratitude for the lesson learned, that is when the game ends forever. You don't need to close the door, because they will never have the courage to walk through it again. You only need to stand still, serene, and let silence speak for you. I understand now, and I have chosen freedom. In the end, every story with a narcissist ends with the same image. One person standing among ruins calling out for the thing they themselves destroyed, and another walking away quietly, without hatred, without regret. The difference isn't about who was right or wrong, but about who had the courage to learn the lesson love came to teach. They will keep searching for you in new faces, trying to recreate the feeling that once made them feel alive. But no matter how many times they repeat it, no one will ever give them what you once did to be truly seen, and that is their punishment. Not losing you, but losing forever the chance to see themselves in the light of real love. As for you, the one who loved fully, you walked through the fire, you burned, you turned to ash, and then you were reborn. You no longer need their remorse, their apology, or their validation, because you now understand that justice is not their suffering, it is your peace. When your heart no longer tightens at their name, when their memory feels like an old story told long ago, that's when you've escaped, not from them, but from the part of yourself that believed love must come through pain. The narcissist thinks they destroyed you, but they only destroyed the version of you that lived to please others. From the ruins they caused, your true self emerged, stronger, wiser, untouchable by manipulation or charm. They will never understand that, because to understand they would have to bow to truth, to say, "I was wrong," to love without possession. And that is a language they never learned. If there is a punishment for them, it is this. You healed, and they did not. You evolved, and they remain trapped in the same dark room, performing the same empty role. Your peace has become the mirror they fear most, because it tells the truth. You have transcended them without needing to defeat them. In the end, you realize that real love can never be destroyed. It simply withdraws from where it is no longer respected. It doesn't vanish, it transforms. It returns to the one who honors it, you. And as you sit in that silence, no more pain, no more proving. Approving? You understand this is not the end of love. It is the beginning of awareness. True love doesn't need to be seen. It only needs to be lived. And by living in truth, you become the proof that what was destroyed was never love, only the illusion of those who never knew how to love. Because sometimes the greatest victory is not making them regret, but making sure they can never hurt you again.